She warned me with tears. He warned me with proof. Guess who I believed? I should have known the night of our engagement party, when my brother grabbed my shoulder hard enough to bruise and hissed in my ear like a villain in some bad Netflix thriller. She's marrying you to steal your inheritance. We were tucked away in this narrow hallway by my parents' wine cellar, far from the cheerful chaos in the living room. Garrett's breath smelled like he'd drunk half the bar, and his eyes had that wild, too open look he got whenever his anxiety was winning. I've been looking into her for 3 months, he whispered, shaking. She's not who she says she is. And I did exactly what any younger brother who grew up babysitting his older brother's meltdowns would do. I laughed. Jesus, Garrett, not tonight, not here. But he kept trailing after me like some ominous NPC, pushing the same storyline. Her name isn't even Westbrook. It's Natalie Winters. She's from Sacramento. She targets rich guys. This is literally her thing. I told him to stop embarrassing himself, and if he couldn't handle my happiness, he could leave. So he did. No fight, no dramatic explosion, just this long, tight-jawed stare before he walked out the front door without saying goodbye to a single person. Mom asked where he went, and I said he wasn't feeling well. Automatic reflex. I'd been covering for him since I was old enough to understand what it meant to have an episode. Back inside, Natalie was being her usual dazzling self. The emerald dress I'd bought her made her look like she'd stepped out of a magazine spread, and she was chatting with my mom about flowers and venues like she'd known our family for years. She remembered everyone's names, their jobs, their pets. She had this way of looking at people that made them feel interesting. My dad watched her like she was a promising stock he was thinking about buying. We'd been together 8 months. I'd sold my startup for around 30 million shortly before that, and everyone thought we were Instagram level perfect. Me, the tech guy, her, the pediatric nurse with a halo. She held babies, I wrote code. Cute, right? 6 weeks earlier, I'd proposed on a pier overlooking the bay. She cried. I cried. We made plans so fast it made my head spin. The next morning, Garrett sent me a text. Look at this before you marry her. I'm your brother. I'm trying to protect you. With an attachment. I deleted it without opening it. That's who Garrett had always been. When we were teenagers, he stalked my high school girlfriend because he was convinced she was cheating. She wasn't. She was planning a surprise party. Her parents almost called the cops on him. He just shrugged it off, said his instincts were usually right. So yeah, I dismissed him. But his words hung around like smoke. That Saturday, when I picked Natalie up for brunch, she immediately noticed I wasn't myself. Hey, she whispered, running her hand along my arm. Where are you right now? So I told her what Garrett said, and she just broke, color draining from her face, hands shaking. Do you believe him? No, of course not, I said instantly. He's always like this, suspicious of literally everyone. She inhaled unsteadily and told me she'd legally changed her last name at 18. Foster care. Bad biological parents. Westbrook was the one person who made her feel loved. She cried through the whole story. Mascara, trembling voice, the works. I held her while hating myself for even letting Garrett's paranoia in. At brunch, she barely touched her food. I tried joking about honeymoons, beaches, pasta, anything. She smiled like she was trying, but it didn't touch her eyes. Maybe we should delay the wedding, she murmured. I don't want to cause problems between you and your brother. No, I said way too quickly. 3 months. Garrett'll get over it or he won't. He's not ruining this. She squeezed my hand and said I'd changed her life. At the time, it felt romantic. Now, it sounds like something you say after signing a contract. 2 weeks later, my grandmother died. It wasn't unexpected, but it still wrecked me. The real shock was her will. She left everything to me. 2 million in assets, plus her Pacific Heights home worth several million more. Apparently, she wanted her risk-taker grandson to have a cushion. The inheritance would transfer in 30 days. And Natalie? She was perfect. Soft, helpful, making casseroles, organizing documents, staying over nearly every night. She even suggested we move the wedding up. Life is short, she whispered, rubbing circles on my hand. Why wait when we already know? Click the full story to see what happened next.